expecting a young girl, so if she showed up, to send her to his table. The girl never showed up though, which made this man super irritable to where he was pacing up and down the sidewalk until he eventually left. What set off alarm bells though was that since this man had been coming to this restaurant for the past 15 years, the staff there knew him pretty well, and one thing was for sure, he had no wife and no kids, and he would sometimes pretend to be a minister. The owner said that he knows that this man had no good intentions with Nora had they actually met up. Because they physically saw this man, they were able to give police a description of a possible suspect. He was around 40 years old, 5'9", weighed about 170 pounds, was very well dressed, and had a brown mustache. So although this was super helpful, Nora was still nowhere to be found, and this is when authorities started taking the case a bit more seriously. Nothing would really happen though for another month. So on February 8th, 1902, the landlord for 2211 Sutter Street had sent police to the house to conduct a welfare check. The house had been rented 3 days before Nora's disappearance by a man who said his name was C.B. Hawkins. He wanted to rent 2211 Sutter Street, but he told the landlord that he had no references to give because he was from out of town. But the man was dressed extremely well, and he offered to pay the entire first month's rent up front. So the landlord agreed and gave him the keys to the house. On the contract, he again signed his name as C.B. Hawkins. So bringing it back to February 8th, it was now a new month, yet Mr. C.B. Hawkins had not paid the rent, and when the landlord went to knock on the door, he wasn't getting any answers. So he decided to send the police as something just felt off. And when authorities entered the house, they found a really eerie scene. It was like the house had sat untouched for a really long time. Dust and cobwebs were everywhere, and there was almost no furniture in the house, except for the bedroom. There was no source of heat or light, as the gas was never connected, and there was no food in the house either. So as police made their way to the bedroom, they saw a girl lying on the bed under a bunch of blankets. At first, it looked like she was sleeping, but as they peeled back the blankets, they found that this was actually Nora Fuller, and she was deceased. She'd been covered up to her neck in quilts, and the bed she was laying on was really small and cheap. Other than that, there was only one chair in the entire house, which was positioned to look at the bed. Lying on the bedroom floor was Nora's purse and her clothes, and a lot of letters addressed to a Mrs. C.B. Hawkins at 2211 Sutter Street. It was clear that Nora had been dead for some time before being found, and she was completely nude. Authorities found 2 black marks on her throat, one on each side of her larynx, and her cause of death was ruled as strangulation. Afterwards, she'd been horrifically assaulted, her body badly mutilated. The medical examiner said that it was clear just by looking at her that she had been unmistakably violated. No drugs were found in her system, although it could have been possible that she ingested some alcohol before death, and she was found to have eaten an apple about 2 hours before she died. What's really sad is that Nora's little brother was brought in to identify her, which he did, but he said that Nora had her unmistakable ribbon tied around